Alright everybody, I am Kevin from The Real Movie Guys, and you are watching The Real Review, where we review all your favorite movies. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Godzilla Vs Kong. The epic next chapter in the cinematic Monsterverse pits two of the greatest icons in motion picture history against one another, the fearsome Godzilla and the mighty Kong, with humanity caught in the balance. Monster movies, better known as kaiju films, always put me in a tough place when it comes to reviews. On one hand, I'm there for the action, which honestly should be the main focus, but the human characters and plot surrounding them always leaves me feeling like something is missing. My more critical senses start to kick in, and I wonder if the action alone can be the deciding factor on if this movie's really good. Well, I have to say, Godzilla vs. Kong put me in a similar situation once again. After a rocky road and several films, Godzilla getting 2 in this Monsterverse and Kong getting 1 respectively, it's nice we got to see the reuniting of classic monster movie rivals once again. These two haven't battled since 1963, so I do think it's been long overdue to see them clash. I won't comment too much on the previous films since this isn't what the review is concerning. The most recent film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, really scratched my itch for this type of film, delivering on that action and somewhat interesting human-related stories in between. The best compliment I can give this movie is that in every instance it delivers on the promise of these two monsters clashing in the most epic way. Every single scene involving Godzilla or Kong battling is such a delivery of combination of fan service and just really well crafted action. The way the scenes are shot add an overwhelming sense of size and scope to these battles. When Godzilla bites or claws Kong, you feel it. When Kong batters Godzilla with his huge fists or chucks him senselessly through a building and the impact rocks the screen, you feel it. One trick they use in particular is a first-person-like perspective when either of the monsters gets really rocked by the other, adding a serious sense of weight and disorientation. A common thread through a lot of action movies today is the quick-paced, out-of-focus action. When watching Godzilla vs. Kong, you can't deny the careful crafting of the action, keeping everything we want to see in the focus of the camera, and finding new ways to showcase the carnage. One example of this is the first encounter of Kong and Godzilla fighting each other in the middle of the ocean, which is really as spectacular in its execution, adding a sense of advantage to the water-adept Godzilla, but also finding new and clever ways for Kong to stand his ground. At the end of the day, both monsters feel like powerhouses, and neither looks bad in comparison to the other since both have their distinct advantages. For such a CGI-heavy movie, you would be surprised to see that overall, this movie looks incredible. The most obvious attention is given to our two title monsters. Every dorsal spike on Godzilla's back glows blue with atomic energy as he charges for an energy blast, showing every detailed crack and imperfection on each spike. Kong has evidence of age and scars showing healed scratches from some past wars. They take time to make these monsters feel real, having them catch their breath at times and have clear signs of exhaustion. While all this feels great, you also never lose that sense of charm that this was once a tradition of having two guys duke it out in a lizard and monkey suit. The only negative I have is that because of Kong is able to emote with more human-like facial expressions, Godzilla's more forced expressions can seem silly or goofy by comparison, especially one in particular at the end of the movie. The last complimentary piece is the score. It really helps build the tension when either Kong or Godzilla is making their entrance or clashing in battle. I love how it feels like an homage to monster films while also feeling modern. The thunderous roars emitting from the soundtrack accentuate the action and tension on screen, again complementing that all-important weight this movie's trying to convey. I will say though, I was mixed on some of the other song selections in the movie. The inclusion of songs like the opener Over the Mountain and Across the Sea by Bobby Vinton just seemed odd, not bad, but tonally I think unfitting to the movie. One aspect of the story I really liked was Kong's relationship with the little girl Gia, played by actual deaf actress Kaylee Hoddle. Since Kong is a movie behind Godzilla at this point, the creators must have felt they had some ground to cover as far as getting the audience invested in Kong. By utilizing Gia, they were able to quickly build a relationship that the audience would be invested in. Even though he's not actually there, Hoddle's performance could have fooled me. Her natural ability with sign language makes all her moves and expressions feel incredibly natural. You can feel that there is a bond that goes beyond word, and much of the cinematography is able to showcase that perfectly. Maybe it's just a glance at one another for reassurance, or in one of my favorite shots of the film, having Gia putting up her small hand trying to embrace Kong's giant finger to calm him in the rain. This is the part though where we go from one of the best character moments in the film, well, to everything else. You wouldn't be wrong in thinking that this movie's sole focus was to have Godzilla and Kong fight, because everything else is completely underdeveloped or unfortunately just plain bad. In this kind of film, the human characters are not the focus, the giant monster encounters are. However, you do need them to help tell the story and add something of substance to the film. Every character in this film is one-dimensional and suffers from exposition vomit and unnecessary narration or reactionary dialogue of the monster's actions. It's not the fault of the performers. Alexander Skarsgård, Rebecca Hall, and Millie Bobby Brown are excellent actors actors and actresses, but when you're given such bland and wooden dialogue direction, it's something that really becomes impossible to overcome. Out of all the actors, though, I think Millie Bobby Brown really gets the short hand of the stick, mostly due to her scenes feeling like rejected comedic segments from a Michael Bay's Transformers movie.
Are you sure we can trust this guy?
Yeah, why? Well, mainly because he says crazy shit all the time and carries a bottle of whiskey from his dead wife like a gun.
I think it's romantic.
This is a good time to go into what I consider is the weakest and most detrimental part of the film, the plot. Instead of just picking one narrow focused story that would favor both monsters, this movie decides to implement multiple, and in doing so, they all end up feeling convoluted, some faring even far worse than that. If you have a question if the journey is worth the payoff, then you are clearly doing something wrong. One plot line is essentially just a power-up for a particular character, and I often found myself wondering, wasn't there a better way to tell this story? The worst offender would again be in relation to Millie Bobby Brown. Her journey really just leads up to zero payoff and easily could have been cut out and not have made a difference to the film. I can't stress to you all, though, how unfortunate this feels, especially because the lore and world building they are creating is incredibly interesting. It's just not enough time is spent where it needs to be for those more interesting parts to leave an impact. To some degree, I think all these plots could have worked. Well, maybe except Millie Bobby Brown's. They all just needed some time to breathe. The human perspective is something this movie likes to use to help the audience feel like they are part of the action. Unfortunately, this film feels too much like a roller coaster ride. The human protagonists are given a vehicle during the search for Hollowed Earth portion of the film, and the whole time as the vehicle weaves its way in and out of the action, it just feels too on rails for my taste. I understand wanting the human characters to be more involved with the action. Did they really need to make it feel like they were just oohing and eyeing over a very elaborate theme park attraction? Technology in this film is also something I really found myself torn over, but to go into that, I'd have to go into spoilers, so this is your warning. If you don't want a pretty cool detail spoiled, skip to this timestamp in the video to my final thoughts and score. Mechagodzilla is the surprise entrant, making the end of this film a 2-on-1 battle, and honestly, I was all in for it. Evil robot versions of protagonist monsters have always been a staple in kaiju genre of films, and Mechagodzilla's inclusion and modernized redesign elevate that final battle. He is a worthy nemesis for the two monsters, and it's simply amazing to see Godzilla and Kong work together to overcome his ridiculously overpowered arsenal composed of missiles, laser beams, boosters, and a close personal favorite of mine, the drill tail. What some people may have issue with, though, is the over-zany way Mechagodzilla is created and controlled. Essentially, Ren Serizawa, played by Shunogori, creates a special Neuralink powered by a supercomputer that uses the psychic link between two of the skulls from Ghidorah, the last film's monster antagonist, that is exponentially increased in power by an ancient energy source from the center of the earth, which in turn leads to Mechagodzilla turning from remote-controlled robot to sentient being. If that description sounds like a lot, that's because it is. I'm not even getting to how this is all backed by an eccentric, cliched robotics millionaire with a power fantasy.
Oh, shit.
If you are 100% okay with that description, then this won't bother you in the least. For me, I had a good time. I actually embraced the zaniness this film was going for. Part of me just really wishes this was more of a focus of the story and not thrown in as an excuse for Kong and Godzilla to form an uneasy alliance, especially because Mechagodzilla is such a fan favorite from the past. With all the missteps in storytelling and human character portrayals, I still can't find myself disliking this movie. The execution of these two monster icons battling it out really doesn't disappoint. However, I still think we have come a long way in filmmaking, and while we have seen the evolution of these characters from rubber suits and miniatures to now being portrayed as advanced CGI crafted masterpieces, there really is no reason we can't help evolve the human side of these stories with more substance, depth, and care. Which brings me to my final score. I'm going to give Godzilla vs. Kong a C+. Monster movies aren't for everyone. There's a whole lot of trust one has to lay with the director and screenwriter to help make this most ridiculous situation impactful and action-filled. While not a bad experience, overall I feel like this film is a bit of a misstep in this Monsterverse. It delivered in every sense of the word as far as action. Honestly, it is pretty awe-inspiring to see these two titans throw down, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if that's all you're looking for. If this series is to continue, though, I think some form of change in storytelling is needed. The fresh coat of CGI paint looks nice and all, but I can't help but see the zipper behind the suit starting to show. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.